Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out about a month ago, and everyone knows what that means. It means the Nerdist, Watch Mojo, and a whole bunch of YouTube channels are trying to capitalize on it and talk about other Spider-Man series and related material. Seriously, Nerdist needed a distraction away from their tiresome Avengers Infinity War theories. I've seen channels talk about the Spectacular Spider-Man, the original 1960s Spider-Man, Spider-Man the Animated Series, and of course that Japanese live-action Spider-Man series. But not me! I won't stoop so low to review a Spider-Man series while the characters are still relevant in people's minds because of a movie's release. That's not my style! Okay, just play the thing, we all know what's coming. This just in, YouTuber 2Damp is releasing a video about that Menace Spider-Man for something called a Patreon reward. I don't like it. Oh, well, that's just coincidence. Let's talk about Spider-Man, shall we? Just like the comics, the webhead's adventures on television and in the movies have had their ups and downs. You have shows that are fondly remembered, mainly for the memes these days, like the 1960s Spider-Man. You have a show that's fondly remembered, like Spider-Man the Animated Series. You have a show that's much better than Spider-Man the Animated Series, but not as fondly remembered like the Spectacular Spider-Man. And then, of course, you have shows that are rarely remembered, like Neil Patrick Harris's version of Spider-Man. And then you have the 2017 Marvel Spider-Man series, where most of his villains are kids. I wish I was kidding about that last part. I'm sorry. You gotta do a lot for me not to want to watch the second season after the first. Plus, I keep confusing Peter Parker with Pidge from Voltron. But today we are going to talk about a series that is not only fondly remembered by fans, but is also not really talked about all that much. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Hello, friends. My name is Tunamp, and this is the history of Spider-Man and his amazing friends. Now, as a child of the 80s, I will admit that I was aware of Spider-Man at the time, but I never really watched or read any of his stuff. In fact, probably the most I've ever seen of him during the 80s is at the end of some of the Marvel production shows that have Spider-Man jumping on the Marvel production logo after the credits. So I never really got into Spider-Man and his villains before Spider-Man the Animated Series started in 1995. And I didn't even realize there was a Spider-Man and his amazing friends until UPN started airing reruns of the series once Saban had a hold of the block for a year. So now I have a chance to review the series. Does it hold up compared to the rest of the Spider-Man series?
No, it does not.
But neither does any of the other Spider-Man series, with the exception of maybe one of the more current Spider-Mans and the Spectacular Spider-Man. I mean, every single Spider-Man is a little bit different, just like this one. But it is a product of its time, and as a product of its time, which is 1980 and 1991, it's a really good kind of bad series. So let's begin.
Next week on Static Shock.
Now, Spider-Man and his amazing friends has an amusing history on how it got started. But in order to talk about it, we first have to talk about one of my least favorite tropes. Now, you heard me before talking about unnecessary humans taking away from the focus of the main character of a series, and how much I love them. There is a trope that's even worse than that, and that is the obnoxious pet trope, or comic relief animal. It isn't exactly fair to say that all comic relief animals are bad. After all, animal sidekicks are part of the backbone of Disney's formula. Heck, if it wasn't for the animals, Disney's Cinderella would lose a huge chunk of the movie. Although, did the birds and mice actually accomplish something? I mean, outside getting the keys to Cinders. Everything else with them was pretty much filler. Anyway, what I'm talking about here is the Scooby-Doo knockoff characters. You know, the ones that try to copy the same formula as Scooby-Doo but fail. You have your Archie's dog, Bleeps and Bloops, Snarfs, you have Slimers. Super Friends even had not one but two obnoxious pets in Wonder Dog and Gleek. And those were paired up with the necessary humans. Hello, Marvin, Wendy, and the Wonder Twins. I'm fine with the other three, but Marvin, I just want to rip his little... Hanna-Barbera and Filmation are the worst offenders with these kinds of characters. However, the late 80s and up to today have proven that they are not essential to a series. That is, unless they are done right, like Pascal and Maximus from Tangled. But then again, with them, you would have to drop the obnoxious part of the obnoxious pet trope. While these obnoxious pets do seem unnecessary at the time, it turns out that one of these characters was very necessary for Spider-Man and his amazing friends. Introducing Miss Lion, the dog. My least favorite character of the series, but also the reason why this series exists. While the obnoxious animal trope may seem bad to us right now, we have to admit they were kind of a hit with kids. I mean, let's face it, we kind of have poor judgment when we are kids. When we grow up, we even have worse judgment. But let's start at the beginning. In an interview with Dennis Mark, who was a producer and story editor for the series, there was another Spider-Man series that was almost finishing production when NBC took notice. You see, NBC was looking for a series to compete with Super Friends. But of course, all the DC characters were locked in with ABC at the time. So what better way to compete with them than to use DC's chief rival, Marvel? So NBC went to the newly formed Marvel Productions. But before that happened, Spider-Man had to prove himself. That was done in the 1980s syndicated series, which His Amazing Friends should not be confused as a spin-off of that series, although they pretty much use the same title and font and some of the character designs from that series. It's kind of confusing, and it is understandable why people would get confused about that. Now, Marvel had put a lot of stock into making Spidey successful, and it worked. It caught the eyes of NBC. The production crew went to New York for a meeting with the Vice President of Children's Broadcasting of NBC, Mickey Dewar. Now, this is where Miss Lion comes in. You see, Dewar wanted a dog for Firestar because Super Friends had a funny animal in their series. Again, it was a common thing back then. So Dennis decided to mix a few things together. One was the dog was modeled off of his wife's dog, which was a Lhasa Apso, which he explained to Dewar was a temple lion dog of Tibet. The other mix was the times. America in the 1980s was in the middle of a feminist revolution, so it was decided that the dog was to be called Ms. Lion. Dewar loved it. Now I love this quote from Dennis Marks from the interview.
We have just sold the show, and it was this damn little feminist dog that sold it. Without a drawing, without an image, for a cartoon show.
Miss Lion was featured a lot during the first season of the series, mainly because NBC was breathing down their necks about her. However, after the series got some footing on the air, NBC backed off, according to a story artist for the show, Rick Hoberg. However, if we are going to be talking about the Amazing Friends part, we have to talk about Firestar. For those of us who don't know, the original plan for the show was to have the Human Torch, Johnny Storm, be the third friend. But there seemed to be concerns. According to a documentary of the show, Spider-Man on the Move, the reason the Human Torch was not in the show because he was a man on fire, and they didn't want to have kids set themselves on fire or play with matches because of this. Personally, I think this did the show a favor, because adding a female character to the main cast changed the dynamic from three bros hanging out to adding a little romantic competition to the mix. So in short, Firestar helped the show.
It's a SHIELD flying car.
I've never seen one this close before.
This is SHIELD Special Field Officer Buzz Mason. Official business, top priority. Hop in, Spider-Man. When SHIELD comes for you like this, it's not a request. It's an order.
Admit it, you were laughing at my face. Eh? It's your funeral.
I'm glad to see you, but what brought you out here?
My special Iceman sense told me there was trouble.
Your what? You don't have any special Iceman sense that warns you of danger? Well, it was worth a try.
So before we get started on the show's story, I guess I should warn you that there are going to be spoilers. The show's over 35 years old, but nevertheless, spoiler warning. The show is about 3 college students who secretly moonlight as superheroes. 2 of them, Iceman, Bobby Drake, and Firestar, Angelica Jones. Honestly, it's going to be very hard for me not to accidentally call her Starfire or Firestorm. were originally X-Men who were sent off to college by Professor Xavier. Their secret identities are discovered by Spider-Man when a villain known as the Beetle attacks Tony Stark, and all three of them come to his rescue. Their identities are accidentally revealed when Peter Parker accidentally photographs Angelica turning into Firestar. Since he hangs out with Bobby, Peter figures out that he is Iceman. All three of them decide it would be a good idea for them to team up and have their home base at Peter's Aunt May's, since they're going to the same university. And thanks for saving him twice, Tony Stark, he's Iron Man, you know he's Iron Man, I don't have to get into that, donates a crime computer and other lab equipment to the Spider Friends. So we have three superheroes living at Peter's aunt's with a crime-solving computer donated by Tony Stark. That poor old lady's energy bill. And their off times, the characters hang out at Peter's aunt's house. Other times, they are at school. And other times, they're on some kind of vacation. It's really just three friends hanging out and then stopping crime. It's not really all that complicated, and honestly, it doesn't have to be. A lot of series later on get into these complicated storylines where they keep adding new characters to the group, and for most series, it's fine. This series, not so much. It was kind of a turnoff for me for the 2017 Spider-Man series. They didn't keep it simple. There was too many characters, which is kind of the reason why I really like Spider-Man the Animated Series and Spectacular Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is kind of better as a loner. What I did find interesting is the series started out with all three of them being friends, and they didn't get into their origin story until season 2. Well, the individual character origin stories of all three Spider-Friends anyway. How the group got together was showcased in season 3. Is it unusual? Most of the time, yes. Is it something that has been done since? Actually, yes. Remember when the original Teen Titans came out? Everyone was confused because the first episode didn't show the group coming together. In fact, it was during the last season, within the last couple episodes, that they actually showcased how the group got together. And the fact that that worked, and it worked for Spider-Man and his amazing friends, means the concept really works well if it's done right. I think because of this series being so simple, the three friends are not really overcrowding things unless there is a need for an occasional guest hero. It works really well. Also add the fact that they are not limiting the cast of characters to Spider-Man and his rogues gallery. It makes the series a whole lot more special. You have villains and heroes across the entire Marvel universe. You have Doctor Doom, Captain America, Iron Man, the Submariner, Magneto, Wolverine, who is Australian in the series. I don't know how they keep confusing Canada with Australia, but that does explain Hugh Jackman. This is the Marvel television universe, and that's what makes this series real special because of that universe expansion.
This is our other new member, Wolverine.
How you doing? Want a piece of fruit?
He has been possessed by the Krampus!
You are a scientist, Spider-Man, whoever else you may be. Using Colossus's body to amplify the Negabattery's charge is a brilliant idea.
It's only brilliant if it works, Professor. As they say in department stores, charge it, lady!
Okay, so the animation for this series is kind of divided. And again, I've stressed this before, it really does depend on which animation studio Marvel production used for each episode. Because seriously, you can tell the difference between studios for this series. Honestly, for a company that's trying to compete with Hanna-Barbera's Super Friends, if I had to compare the two and see which one was better animation-wise, it's Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, hands down. Although the later versions of Super Friends may be a different story. We have to keep in mind that the studio making the series is also the one who animated G.I. Joe, Transformers, and Jem and the Holograms. Those were the top-notch animation that the 80s were pretty well known for, and a lot of those were done overseas. Obviously, it's not as good as what Disney and Warner Brothers would do later on, but then again, nobody expected television animation to look as good as Warner Brothers and Disney animation, since they did revolutionize television animation. I will say that with shows like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, the animation started to head that direction, would be improved upon with later series like G.I. Joe and Jem.
There it is. That didn't take too long. Ooh, it's cold up here.
Legend of the Blackwater Dark Water?
Well, I don't know who you are, but if you've got Spider-Man, you've got the reward. Actually, it's in 2 parts. First, a month's free subscription to the Daily Bugle, New York's finest newspaper. Second, and best of all, an autographed photo of the Bugle's illustrious publisher, me.
The Amazing Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk will return after these messages.
This just in. I've come up with the theory that the criminal Spider-Man and YouTuber Tunamp are the same person. You never see them together in the same place. That doesn't make sense. Wouldn't he call himself Spider-Cat? It's a ruse to direct you away from him. But the show ended in 1983, and this is 2019. Details, details. Stop interrupting me while I'm trying to accuse an innocent cat of criminal activities. What we need is evidence. Pictures. Pictures of Tunamp as Spider-Man. Pictures of Tunamp as himself. Pictures of Tunamp in a tutu. I don't care! Send your pictures and drawings into Tunamp's social media pages. And they may be featured in an upcoming issue of the award-winning Daily Bugle. And possibly an upcoming video. My greatness is not limited to just one form of media. If we're trying to incriminate Tunamp, why are we having people send fan art and such to his social media pages? You're fired! Know-it-all kid keeps interrupting me. I'm J. Jonah Jameson, for crying out loud. Show some respect. And where's Parker? Wait, what did he just say? Well,
We now return to the Amazing Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk.
Enough! Do you guys think he's had enough? No!
Throughout the years, we have had all sorts of Spider-Man theme songs. We have songs that are memorable.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can.
We have songs that are great.
Spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man, spectacular, spectacular, Spider-Man.
We have songs that aren't memorable. And we have songs that really aren't there at all. So what category would I put Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends theme song into? Personally, I would put it in the theme songs that aren't memorable. But that doesn't feel right. I remember the song, it just doesn't excite me as much as the others. I think part of that reason is because the show has an announcer.
Spider-Man and his amazing friends, Iceman and Firestar.
Which is kind of odd to say because Super Friends theme song is really memorable. It doesn't have any lyrics, but it does have an announcer. So why do I not care much for Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends theme song, even though it does the same? Part of me wants to say it's because of the competition. Now, I'm not comparing it to the shows that came out around the same time as Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I'm talking about the fact that there are better Spider-Man theme songs. Songs, again, that are classics. Some that will get you right into the series because that's what a theme song is supposed to do. But again, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends aren't the worst theme song, especially when it comes to the visuals. The winner of that one goes to the 2017 Spider-Man series. If you're sensing a theme here, yeah, I think Disney dropped the ball with the latest series on almost everything. Now, the visuals for Amazing Friends is what it's supposed to do, and that's get you excited for the series because you see the friends battling monsters and villains, and oh, Dr. Doom is there! So yeah, this series theme song is a mixed bag. Did it get better with the second season when they introduced the Incredible Hulk series? Not really. It's pretty much the same theme song at first. That is, until we get to the Hulk portion. The music changes a little bit and gets, I don't know, boring? Which is really too bad.
This is the future finder, Spider-Man. Look, see the future. These creatures are the people of New York. My formula will make everyone ugly, grotesque, horrific, like me.
Spider bread, does whatever a gingerbread can.
A police car? What's it doing in front of our house?
Are, you Peter Parker?
Yes? What are you...
I've got bad news for you, son. It was a burglary. Your uncle woke up, surprised the burglar, and then...
Oh, no.
I really like the characters in this series. They all have unique and distinct personalities. That's a plus for any series. Spider-Man is Spider-Man with his famous quips and his expert web slinging. While he does have some personal conflict, it doesn't go as far as what Spider-Man the Animated Series all the way up to the current Spider-Man has. I think that works for this series because you're focusing on 3 characters instead of just the one. Iceman's personality is the one that I had to get used to, mainly because I had to get past the, oh, it's just Frank Welker thought process. Hate to say it, but there are a number of voice actors that I follow that if I find a new voice that they're doing, I'll always have this viewpoint where, oh, it's just that particular actor, which unfortunately makes it a little harder to get into the character the actor is playing. For me, it was both Spider-Man and Iceman, mainly because Spider-Man is voiced by the same guy who does Bumblebee in the original Transformers, Dan Gilvezan, and I had to get over that. It's not really the fault of the voice actors as much as it was the fault of me being very familiar with their work. So again, it took me a while to get used to both of these voices. But what did it for me was the fact that these characters worked out so well. They had a very good connection with each other. Iceman is a smarter version of Sonic Boom's Knuckles. Okay, well that's not fair. Iceman has his moments to shine even though he's kind of dumb. He's the comic relief of the group. He does have his moments where he just clicks with Spider-Man, where he can come out with an insult as well as he can take it. It adds a lot to the dynamic of the group because he and Spider-Man play off of each other so well. It just feels natural, which is kind of weird. It's almost like a competition between the two. Add in Angelica's Firestar, and it becomes a little more interesting. Firestar comes off as the object of both Spider-Man and Iceman's affection. Unrequited? Possibly. They both have a crush on her. While they do seem to be in competition with each other, both Spider-Man and Iceman have stepped aside and has tried to convince each other to talk to Angelica about their feelings. It's an interesting way to show how strong the bond between these 3 characters are. And honestly, it's a development that actually helps these characters grow more. Super Friends never went this route. Now, as far as Firestar is concerned, her personality is that she's kind of playful. She's a tease when it comes to Spider-Man and Iceman, but she can dish out quips and insults as good as her male counterparts. It's very interesting because if the 3rd character was indeed Johnny Storm, like it was supposed to be, we wouldn't get this kind of development. I mean, it was the 80s. We were brave about our hair and clothes, but we weren't brave when it comes to that kind of relationship stuff. So yeah, Firestar was a welcome character that the show really needed. As far as the other characters are concerned, we had a great use of villains. Dr. Doom is a bit menacing in this one. Not that he ever wasn't. However, if you're looking for some corn when it comes to the villains, this would be the show to gravitate to. I mean, when you have the guy who plays Duke Igthorn from the Gummy Bears, Michael Rye, who is known for being over the top playing Magneto, you're going to get a few laughs with that.
Silence, fools! I, Magneto, absolute monarch of magnetism, now place all of you under arrest!
But it's all in fun. It doesn't get too cheesy, it doesn't get too serious. It's a perfect balance for a show like this. Even Aunt May, who is played by June Foray, is enjoyable because of her cluelessness, and she does have that dumb dog, Miss Lion, as an interactive foil between her and the Spider Friends. Even Miss Lion, who I don't really care for, does have her moments to shine and have some personality traits. Even though she's just a dumb dog, she does recognize Peter, Angelica, and Bobby as Spider-Man, Firestar, and Iceman. And that's maybe because of instincts, or maybe it's just because she recognizes the smell, which makes me think that Scooby-Doo and the rest of the Hanna-Barbera mystery-solving dogs are not doing their job. Or they all have their noses broken because they should have been able to sniff out who the villains are right off the bat, just by smell, and then telling the other characters who it is because they're talking dogs. Good God, I'm using logic for children's cartoons from the 1970s. Next thing you'll know, I'm going to try to explain why Bugs Bunny shouldn't be eating carrots, and also shouldn't be talking for that matter. I should also add that there is a great use of Marvel superheroes in this series too, not limiting to just the Spider-Friends. It does make me wonder why they didn't go the Avengers route instead of Spider-Friends, but who cares? You get classic characters like Dr. Fate, Captain America, Iron Man, all sorts of fun characters in this one. It really did make this show special. Moving on!
Oh! Where's Peter?
Here I am.
Oh, hurry, it's terrible. It happened right in the middle of my favorite soap opera.
Sorry, Aunt May. You'll need an electrician for this.
So be good, for goodness sake.
You really like her a lot, don't you?
Uh-huh.
So do I. But fire and ice don't exactly mix. Why don't you tell her?
If she said no, bye-bye Spider Friends.
Now, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends does have an interesting broadcast history. It aired on NBC for 6 seasons from 1981 to 1986, with the first 3 seasons having brand new episodes. It was paired up with the Incredible Hulk series for the 2nd and 3rd season. The last 2 years it aired on NBC were actually in reruns, which is kind of obvious. The series would later air on syndication as part of the Marvel Action Universe, a syndication block that had new series from Marvel Productions mixed in with older series, which included Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and the 1980 version of Spider-Man. Later in 1998, Saban managed to get his hands on the series and aired Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends on UPN Saturday mornings, interchanging between Spider-Man the Animated Series and that one. The series would later air on Disney XD, and they would also have an abridged version with new dialogue and voices and try to make it funny.
Darn it! I have sand in my underwear again. I hate having sand in my oh, no more sand.
Team 4-Star, they are not.
Look out!
What are you doing?
He was about to fire his sonic ray.
I don't believe you. Dr. Doom is right. You are my enemies. Turn to stone.
Can I bunk with you guys? The folks at DreamWorks won't let me stay with them anymore.
What's going on?
A game, and you're losing.
Well, I don't even want to play.
Very well, we'll change it.
What, more holograms? They don't scare me. Ow!
Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends Legacy will be known as one of the first cartoons to expand the Marvel Universe, from just being about a single superhero or group and their rogues gallery to sharing an entire universe with Iron Man and X-Men, Hydra, and more. It is fondly remembered for this. For a series that doesn't take itself too seriously, it does have an emotional weight because of the interactions between the 3 main characters. It may not be the best Marvel cartoon, but I would put it up there within the top 10. Yes, it's campy. Yes, it has that dumb dog, but it also has heart. And you can tell that the creators of the series really put a lot of love into it. And that is important. I've seen series that exist just to sell toys and have had very little effort put into it. There is no love. No effort. And those are the series that tend to fail quickly. That is not what happened with The Amazing Friends. Dennis Marks and his crew made a series that is memorable and entertaining. And that is the most important thing of all.
We're gonna go catch that new sci-fi movie, Space Samurai. Want to come along, Peter?
Nah, I'd better hit the books.
You sure know how to have fun, pal.
Ms. Lion will keep you company.
Oh, swell.
The Bijou? Nah, I've seen that flick at the Bijou. Let's go to the Rialto.
Bobby, I've got a date with Peter tonight.
Oh, that's okay. I don't mind. I just don't want to see the same flick over again. Let's go to the Rialto.
Why don't you get your own date and go to the Rialto?
Now that's a great idea.
Wow, amazing fantasy number 15. I've got to have it.
Fine, it's $1,000.
Oh, I don't really need it. Wow, I never dreamed the first Spider-Man comic would become so valuable.
Before I end this, I want to dedicate this video to the memory of Stan Lee. Stan Lee was a very important part of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, playing the hype man of the series, which is the perfect role for him. Always has been. My first memory of him was watching either the Iron Man or Fantastic Four series in the 90s. He would come out and hype up the shows before they would start. Then I remember watching an X-Men video where he would start the video out hyping the X-Men up and telling the story how they were created. I believe he said that not everyone can be bitten by a radioactive spider or hit with cosmic rays, and pretty much they needed a group of superheroes fast. Something like that. The thing is, because of these two hype segments, I recognized Stan almost instantly in the Spider-Man movie. Stan was very important in promoting creativity and dreams. Most of the great creators are. Creativity, originality, dreams. These are things that should never be crushed. Stan understood this. That is why, like many others, he is important to me. He was a real, true believer. I'm Tunamp, Excelsior.